forward to the 2023 Annapolis to Newport race. You had talked about 2021 being champagne sailing, basically a spinnaker run from Chesapeake Light to Block Island on into Newport. The 2023 Annapolis to Newport was dramatically different. It was a heavier air race. It was a little rough in the ocean. Why don't you talk first and foremost, everyone in that race had to make a decision when they either to go into the ocean to begin with, or once they got into the ocean, whether to stay in the race or retire. Talk about the decision making of Cookie Monster.
Sure. Well, the first thing started in almost no wind. So we knew it was coming, and we've been looking at the forecast for a few days.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anybody on the team who wanted to bow out.
No, and the mental preparation I think that we did ahead of the race to just sort of get ourselves in the mindset of we're going to be facing some challenging conditions really kind of set us up for success and continuing.
I knew that there was a possibility we'd have to turn around, and it affected our strategy in a couple of ways. The routing models actually wanted us to go out and hit the Gulf Stream. So once we left Chesapeake, go out about 200 miles and then turn left. I didn't trust the routing models. Our navigator from the 2021 race, we talked with him before, like in the hours before the start, and he was adamant, don't trust that model. You'll get out there 200 miles, and if the wind isn't what you want, you'll be so far separated from the fleet. But the other factor was going far out in high wind gave us a lot fewer options if we broke something or someone got hurt. So between those two factors, I was pretty committed to trying to stay with the pack in the ocean and stay close enough that if we did decide that we had to turn around, we could do it in a safe way and get back safely. But yeah, there was really two decision points for us in whether to stay in or not. Going down the bay, we were doing pretty well, and we were leading the whole fleet, leaving the harbor entrance and going towards Chesapeake Light. But we immediately could see that it was getting incredibly choppy, blowing about 20, maybe gusts of 30. We really struggled to put in the second reef, so we were pretty much exhausted and wet when we rounded the Chesapeake Light. And I think we took a left turn immediatly, and I wrote in the logbook, very difficult conditions, had a long discussion with Matt and Athena about whether we were going to continue. And I think Matt Ellis, he's one of my watch captains, he said, I think we can do it. I think, everyone was pretty soaking wet and tired, but at that point, nobody wanted to quit. But, it was sort of a sobering discussion. Like, yeah, we could press on, but we're going to, we might break sails, we might have to turn around. We decided to keep going and reevaluate in the morning at daylight. And by that point, I think probably half the fleet had already turned around. There were a number of boats that kind of poked their head out of the bay. It was as windy as the forecast said, and they turned around.
It was a gutsy call for that reason, because we saw boats with well-sailed crew who were set up for ocean racing turning around. I remember the first one we saw, we thought, I wonder if they broke something. Why would they be turning around? Because we had done all this sort of mental preparation to get ready for bad weather. It really kind of stumped us why they would be turning around. And then we saw a few more turn right around one after the other.
We were pretty confident the boat could handle it. It was more just a matter of, could we do it safely? Could we, especially if we had people down with seasickness, could we be safe and still perform? And I think we thought we could, and we wanted to try it. So we didn't want to just, we wanted to press on for a little bit longer.
I remember Katie and Matt and I went down for our off watch to sleep. We got dressed to come back and go on watch, and we came up and people were working hard, and we thought, all right, here it is, here we go. This is kind of what we expected and signed up for.
Other than the fact that we were getting really tired, three people, I felt like we could handle the boat just fine. We were on the J3, 2 reefs in the main. We were pretty controllable. The main thing was the chop and the slamming, and just sort of every time as we eased off a little bit to avoid a wave, we'd just launch off of it and slam at the bottom of the next trough. So
there was so much weather at one point that was coming into the boat that we had a discussion about, hey, is this water coming from outside the boat, or is it leaking through the keel bolts? And so this was kind of the lead us into the second decision point of, all right, let's let's get the water out of the boat, let's get the boat dried off and see what we're working with here.
I mean, what kept us going, honestly, I think, was we were in touch with the Navy boats, the Navy 44s. That night, they'd maybe gained, we let them out of the bay. I think they closed within about 2 miles of us on the at Chesapeake Light, and we had them in AIS range, so within 10, 12 miles. So we were just essentially...
We could see our competitors.
Yeah, we could see our competitors.
Gave us a little bit of comfort.
That gave us a lot, yeah, it gave us a lot of enthusiasm to stay in it.
Yeah, and when you see somebody close to you like that, as a racer, you just want to beat them. You want to keep going.
Yeah.
So it was motivating in a sense too. And I think did we go 12 miles that night? 12 miles in 12 hours?
We didn't go very far upwind, but neither did anyone else.
Yeah.
So we knew that the weather that it wasn't going to last forever, and it never does. If we could just hang with them for a little bit longer, till that afternoon, evening, it was going to start to back. We'd eventually be able to put up a code sail or an ASIM, and we were confident we could beat them in those conditions. We just had to stick with them and just keep pressing in the bad stuff. And
it's hard to describe how rewarding it was to then pass all of those boats the following morning. Boats that had closed on us, a couple had passed us, and then by morning time, we'd beat them again.
So usually with the offshore racing, you're kind of sailing your own race. You're down, or at least me or the navigator, down there with the computer, figuring out which angles we want to sail, what head sails. We may leave the rum line for breeze that we're expecting to get. This last one, that in the really bad racing, it was a surprisingly tactical race. I don't think I wasn't able to get weather downloads for some reason, and we didn't have enough people to go mess with the computer anyways. We were just watching the AIS tracks, and when they tacked, we'd just try to stay a little bit above them, and before we threw an attack, just stay in touch with them. As the breeze would eventually die, we wanted to make sure that we were where the new breeze would come in first. We did not want them to get it to extend far and get a chance at something that we didn't see, because we also knew when the new breeze was going to come in a day or two, there were going to be some big wind holes. As the wind died down, and we started putting up bigger sails, then we actually we were launching off the waves because we were really speeding up. We actually had to slow it down a little bit. We took the code 0 down because we were still in the middle of the middle part of the race, and we couldn't afford to break it. And we had a lot of water still coming over the deck. We had to play it a little more conservatively at that point because we were right in touch with them. We were inching away from them, but we knew that was tenuous. So at that point, we finally were able to get weather downloads, which also gave us a little more confidence. Then we had a really big decision to make, and it was, a decision we've been talking about for, I don't know, the better part of 2 years, which anyone who's done the Annapolis to Newport race will tell you is the decision that wins or loses it. It's go inside Block Island or not. And so we were looking at the tide models and trying to evaluate, and the forecast was to give us a little push if you went inside. We were just, you know what, that little tidal push isn't going to be enough. There's going to be stronger wind on the right side of Block Island, and we decided to stay outside of it. It paid off. We were debating that right up until the end. I think we could see a boat on AIS go inside, and we were not sure if we made the right call or not until the last bit. And then I think final approach to Newport, I think there was a giant ship coming in.
Yeah.
That we had to kind of zigzag around.
It was carrying a big turbine.
Yeah, a big wind turbine. On that final approach, we knew we were doing well, but we knew we had to really push a lot harder. We probably changed spinnaker 10 times, going between the code 0, the A3, and the A2. Whenever we felt we could get just a little bit more out of it. And that's where our bow guy Connor and Julius on the mast really crushed it. They didn't complain at all. And every 10, 15 minutes, we're like, okay, sail change, guys, let's do it again. And no mistakes, it was wonderful. It was just fantastic sail evolutions.
Historically, I can think of 2 situations in which our crew performs really well. The first is when things get challenging. Everybody really just starts to come alive. Pitch in, do their part, work well together as a team. And the second is when we're within 10 hours of finishing an ocean race. It is the most motivating, exciting feeling. You can taste the dark and stormies waiting for you at the dock. But this year, having that sense of we're in first place, we have to hang on to this, defend it, keep it going. It was like we tapped into a new level of focus, and especially after the test from that the Night of Doom gave us.
I was just excited to see Castle Hill Light. I think in 2021 it was all fogged in. Yeah, it was a neat experience. It made you realize that all the prep work and the time and energy and the rough conditions at sea all sort of pays off when you're finishing. And I think, I mean, we did. Honestly, it obviously felt really nice to win our class, but just crossing the finish is an accomplishment. Yeah, it's a great experience. You know, you have tremendous respect for all your competitors. Each boat has different performance characteristics. Some do better in some conditions and better in other conditions. And a big part of racing is, you know, do the conditions favor your boat? But yeah, over time, it's just kind of fun when you're out in the ocean and people can choose the point of sail that they want to make their boat perform best, and you kind of just sort of watch the fleet spread apart, and each boat's like trying to find their perfect angle, and you're evaluating your decisions based on boats that are dissimilar to you and trying to sort of put yourself in a place where you have an advantage. It's an exciting, very analytic process.
Well, in addition to sailing on Cookie Monster, a number of our crew also sail on other boats on Wednesday nights, on Thursday nights. So at the party, you're interacting with a lot of your friends that you crew with on other boats. And so it's a fun way to reconnect with your friends and neighbors from Annapolis in a different city. You go to different bars and restaurants and have a great time.
Yeah, it was worth it. Made you realize that all the work was worth it.
Yeah, well, when we had that silver platter in our hands too, it just took me back to that moment 2 years earlier where Steve said, we're coming back with a piece of silver, and here we were at that moment 2 years later, and we've done it.
It was a great experience. I'd also say though, I would have felt pretty satisfied just finishing that race. Yeah, and I think it was a challenging race, and anyone who finished it, they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty tight-knit crew to begin with. We hang out outside the boat, but it really bonded us, that experience, kind of knowing that you have each other's back. But being able to do something like that with your friends is just so much fun. And you basically get to spend 5 days with your friends as your roommates on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean. There's nothing beats it.
Yeah!